since 1935, this spot has subsided about 14 feet.
Oh!
So that's since 1935.
So the whole structure has come down.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's Michelle Sneed. She's been studying subsidence or sinking in the Central Valley for nearly 20 years with the United States Geological Survey. We met up along the Delta-Mendota Canal, a major delivery source of surface water to the Central Valley, but also a site showing damage from this sinking.
This is essentially, Michelle, your field office in here.
Yeah, it's one of them.
Basic?
Yeah.
Pretty basic?
Yeah.
Obviously, the eye is drawn to this right here.
Right.
What is this?
So this is called an extensometer. Essentially, the sensors are right on the other side of this bar here. And there's two of them. One is just called a linear displacement transducer. And essentially, it's one end is tied to the cable using this cable clamp.
So this is the actual piece that will go down.
Yep. And
Okay,
when it's subsiding, more of this cable appears to stick out of the ground.
The reason? Excessive groundwater pumping.
Here we are, another gorgeous sunny day in California, and these days become pretty regular as we dig deeper into spring and summer. But for farmers out here in the Central Valley, they have to get water somewhere for these crops. It can either come from canals in the California aqueduct or through wells that they dig deep into the ground to get to that underground water called groundwater. So let's take a look at where that all comes from. Here's a layer cake, if you will. We've got the surface. Next comes the water table. Below that is sand, silt, and clay, all deposited from ancient lakes and streams. Within those clay layers, it's very important to what's happening, especially with the groundwater pumping. Take a look at a healthy clay layer. We've got a lot of space and room for that water to move around, okay? So that can be recharged very easily with some percolation from the ground. Now let's take a look at a slice that has been overpumped. The little clay particles, they're stacked like pancakes. There's very little room for any water, never mind room for that to be recharged. What happens in that situation, when that compacts, the ground above it sinks down.
The concern is nothing new. In fact, Dr. Joseph Poland, a pioneer in land subsidence, illustrates the 28-foot drop the valley had from 1925 to 1977 due to excessive pumping. It was the only way farmers and people living here could get water, a habit which has led to the largest human alteration of Earth's surface. The problem was alleviated right around the late 1970s with the California aqueduct opening, a new way to deliver water to Central and Southern California. This helped to minimize the rapid sinking, but it didn't last long.
The groundwater system really should be used like a savings account, whereas, the snowpack in the mountains are reservoirs that have water in them. Those are kind of our checking account where we use that. But then you don't want to kind of dip into the savings account very often or very much because it takes a long time for the water to get there in the first place.
And there have been far too many withdrawals from that savings account. Periods of drought, especially recently, has put this issue back in the spotlight. Recent photos show the valley dropping almost 5 feet, 6 feet, and over 8 feet. This is why NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory is now joining the effort. I spoke with Tom Farr about how they are using satellites to monitor the sinking.
A combination of imagery is really shedding light on how much we've been sinking. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, we use currently a European satellite called Sentinel-1, and it periodically covers the whole area, almost the whole Earth. And we use those periodic snapshots to then compare these radar images so that we can actually measure how much the ground is sinking. We're accurate to something like a ½ an inch or so. It's a little bit like your laser where all the waves are in sync, and so you get an especially powerful way of looking at surfaces that way. And we compare those phases one after the other. And the Sentinel satellite is collecting data currently about every 6 days, so we can then compare every 6 days.
All of this research brings us back to the infrastructure issues, the source of the greatest concern from this sinking. In an effort not to draw from the ground for our water, we have to rely on surface water, primarily snowmelt, into our complex portfolio of water delivery.
Tracking where all this water comes from can get a little bit complicated, so let's look at it like a GPS system from start to finish. Starting route in the mountains. The snow melts and will make its way into reservoirs, at which point water officials will release that water, and with gravity it moves down towards the valley. It then moves towards Tracy at the Clifton Court forebay, A series of canals and the California aqueduct then will transport that water through the valley and southward about 400 miles into Southern California.
But that system is showing growing signs of damage by the sinking, with cracking and buckling. Check this out. Where you see the water meeting the bridge, well, that didn't used to be like that. In fact, you used to be able to get a kayak under the bridge. The change isn't from higher water level, it's because the bridge has sunk and now makes contact with the water. All of this results in lower amounts of water that can be carried downstream and more pumping of underground water to make up the difference of what is needed during the dry season. So I wondered, even with the historic amounts of snow this winter, if the Department of Water Resources might have trouble delivering all that water. Janine Jones joined me along a very swollen Sacramento River.
If we go over an 85% allocation, our preliminary modeling suggests that our ability to deliver more than that could be affected.
To repair all this and bring the California aqueduct to its original design capacity would cost hundreds of millions of dollars. That's on top of repairs that have already been done.
We have already had to repair some of the largest problem areas in our aqueduct already. Back in the 1980s, we spent, in today's dollars, several hundred million to repair a stretch of the aqueduct.
So the cycle continues. Water deliveries are down, pumping continues with wells getting dug deeper and deeper and groundwater getting lower and lower.
These systems were built to count on the snowpack, and we're losing the confidence in the snowpack now because of a warming climate. So we have to change how we are managing and storing water, and aquifer systems are made for this. This is what they do.